Syracuse. A Cumulus Media station, the voice of the Central New York sports fan. The Score.
Welcome
1260.
to your home for local sports in Syracuse. Outside the Box Score with Mark Rowlands starts right now.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Outside the Box Score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. So you may notice the camera setup in the studio. I didn't know that Josh wasn't going to be here today. So no Josh. He probably told me, and I just forgot. I believe he's out watching John Cena wrestle. He sent me a picture, so he's at the WWE event this weekend. So he probably told me, and I forgot, but here we are. Solo show, but we do have a guest coming on in just a few minutes. Longtime friend of the show, James Zuba, deputy editor at Noon's Magician. I've been talking to James since I was over on the Manchild show years ago. Absolute great guy, really knows his SU hoops. So we're going to break down all the recent Syracuse basketball games, including that game the other night against St. Joe's and much more. We'll even go back and talk about the tournament in Vegas, which I was pretty honest on this show that I think the tournament format is kind of stupid. But SU does play again today, 4 o'clock at the JMA Wireless Dome, hosting Hofstra. So make sure you tune in to that one. ACC Network will be airing that game. Like I said, tip off at 4 o'clock from the JMA Wireless Dome. SU coming off a win against St. Joe's, 71-63. Jim, don't think they covered the number. So they are, I believe, an 11 and a half point favorite against Hofstra today. But this is a team with a good win now. Beat Tennessee 62-60. We were off last week, but that was a big win. So we're going to talk all things SU hoops with my good friend James Zuba. Like I said, deputy editor at noonsmagician.com. So we'll get to that and much more. There's a lot of Major League Baseball news going on. Free agency in full swing. There have been a couple of trades made. We just saw Pete Alonso signed with the Baltimore Orioles, leaving the New York Mets. 5-year, $155 million contract. We'll break that down. The Kansas City Royals locking up their franchise first baseman, Edwin Diaz, Kyle Schwarber. Moves were being made during the winter meetings, which just wrapped up. So, a lot to talk about in the world of Major League Baseball, especially with the Dodgers adding yet another arm to that absolute arsenal they've got out there in LA that helped them win the World Series. We're going to take a timeout. I'm going to call up James. He's coming on right at 11:05, so stick around. We'll be back with James Zuba in just a second here on Outside the Box Score.
If you're one of the millions of Americans behind on your taxes,
I hate this telephone. God, that phone is such a pain in the ass. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Going to jump over to the phone lines. Very special guest, longtime friend of the program. He's the deputy editor at Noon's Magician, my good buddy James Zuba. James, how we doing, pal?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing well. I'm trying to get unburied from all the snow here the past couple of weeks. But other than that, doing good and getting up ready to head to the Dome today for Hofstra.
You mentioned it. This weather is atrocious. I miss when those couple of years where we had very mild winters. Those were great. I'm tired of real winter being back. I hate it.
We got it last year. It looks like we're getting it again this year. So it's been nonstop since Thanksgiving.
Yeah, makes those treks up the hill to the JMA Wireless Dome even longer. But you said you're going to the game today, 4:00 tip, hosting Hofstra. I believe we're 11 and a half point favorite in this one. We were a big favorite against St. Joe's too, and the team failed to cover. What do you think about this team in Hofstra today that Syracuse has as a test?
Yeah, it's a tricky opponent. As we know, they beat Pittsburgh, so they're capable of hanging with ACC caliber teams, even though Pittsburgh figures to be more toward the bottom of the conference. But yeah, like Syracuse, they're a little bit better on the defensive end than they are on the offensive end. So it should be good. The one thing about them, though, is they do defend the 2 very well, but they don't defend the 3 very well. So that might be an opportunity for a guy like Tyler Betsy to continue his hot shooting, and maybe a guy like Kyan Anthony to get going as well.
Yeah, and we've seen from this Syracuse team, we know that there's all sorts of talent in terms of shooting the 3 ball. They finally had, they had a decent night against St. Joe's shooting the 3, 43% for the team. Only took 14 of them, so it's not like it was super high volume. But we've also seen this team struggle with shooting the 3, despite the fact that when Kyan Anthony and, like you said, Betsy and all these guys coming in, it was like, well, this team will be able to shoot 3s. Nate Kings was a big one. Have you seen steady improvement over the year in terms of shooting the 3 ball?
I think for a guy specifically, and Nate Kings, he's gotten going a little bit the last couple home games. He's looked better. Tyler Betsy's been solid, but really the shooting has been down. Got guys like JJ Starling, he's really struggling with his jump shot. I think he's got some issues with his form there, as we've seen with at the free throw line specifically. And I thought Kyan Anthony would be a little bit better shooting the ball from outside than he has. It's not that these guys aren't capable. I think for some of it, it's just maybe a little bit of rhythm. And, we know the depth perception in the Dome can be a little bit tricky at times. Donnie Freeman's another guy who shot the ball pretty well from 3 last year, and he hasn't been available. So I think there's shooters on this roster, and they're able to knock down those shots, Mark, but they just haven't yet. I look at the season that goes on for them to really improve in that category, because it's not like these guys can't make shots.
Well, you mentioned William Kyle and J.J. Starling and their woes shooting the ball, especially from the charity stripe. James is bad. We've seen a lot of bad free throw shooting teams as Syracuse fans. This is really bad. I mean, they're dead last in Division I. They are shooting less than 60% from the free throw line. Is there any hope?
But yeah, you said it. They're now dead last after the performance against St. Joe's on Thursday. They're now dead last in the country in free throw shooting. It's interesting. I don't think they're that bad. I think it's a little bit of contagion, and I think once it becomes a talking point, now guys are starting to think about it. And you got the perfect example, a guy like Tyler Betsy, who is a good free throw shooter, and he went 1 of 6 to the line against St. Joe's. Otherwise, he'd shot free throws pretty well throughout the season. So. Will Kyle's improve? I think it's a little bit of a psychological thing. With JJ and Will, I think it's more of a form thing. I don't know how much those guys will improve as the year goes on, but I think there are other guys on this team, like a Tyler Betsy or Kyan Anthony, who are capable of making free throws. And I think that number will come up a little bit. But certainly it's an area of concern, and it could cost them a couple of games in the ACC with poor free throw shooting.
I happen to know Jimmy Lee a little bit through my other job. I'm real tempted to call him up and just get him inside, in practice with these guys, because if there's anyone that could teach a team how to shoot free throws, obviously it's Jimmy Lee. But it really, Starling is the one that gets me, and we knew he had struggled with his form in the past, and then it seemingly got better. And now he's back to shooting with his old free throw form. I really don't understand it. I don't know if his injuries have something to do with it. To me, it looks like, and I hate to use this word because it's a bad word in the world of sports, it seems like a bad case of the yips, and that scares me.
Well, we know JJ was a good three-point shooter in high school, and when he went to Notre Dame his freshman year, he strained both of his shoulders, and I think that really messed up his form. His sophomore year at Syracuse, his first year, I know he worked really diligently with Jerry McNamara to correct his form in season, and that did seem to help him. He did shoot the ball well in the second half of that sophomore season. But something happened along the way last year and this year as well, where he's kind of reverted back to that old form where he's got a little bit of a hitch in his shot. Sometimes when he shot the free ball this year, when he just catches in motion and doesn't think about it, I think the results are much better. But I do think that there is a little bit of thinking that's going on with JJ. And, as you know, Mark, you start to think a little bit in sports, but the results don't always go your way. So I think it's a little bit of that, and I think it's mechanical as well. And is it fixable? I don't know, but we know JJ's strength is getting downhill and getting to the basket, and that's where he's at his best. But you'd hope for his sake that he can work on that and correct that part of his game on the outside shooting and at the free throw line, certainly.
All right, so let's, we're, as Syracuse people, we love to dwell on the negatives about this team because that's the way most Syracuse fans act. Let's look at the positives. Before that St. Joe's game was the biggest win that this program has had in, how many years? Tennessee comes into the Dome. SU wins 62-60. It wasn't pretty. Certainly wasn't a pretty game to watch, but I think that game proved to me, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, this defense, which based on the team the last couple of years, I can't believe I'm saying this defense is in fact legit. I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, watching them, it looks like for the first time in a long time, we finally have a good defensive Syracuse team again.
Yeah, the defense is markedly improved, and that shows in the numbers as well. I mean, Syracuse, is top 40 in the country in defensive efficiency on Ken Palm, number 34 in the country there. So the numbers bear that out. I think, this offseason they really became much more intentional about the defensive end. Adrian Autry really emphasized to these guys in the summer, like, hey, we've got to get stops. But not just that, with the roster additions and guys like Will Kyle, certainly he's a different look at center, and you improve the point guard position. So there's not as many weak links out there defensively as there were last year where, teams can come in and kind of pick on one guy. So I think there's, any given time out there's 5 capable, good defenders out there. I think it starts there. And I think they've gotten really more intentional with the kills that they're tracking this year. That's new. They're really tracking the 3 defensive stops in a row. That's a big thing for them as well
yep.
As, Red Autry refers to his juicing station, the bench guys. He really wants those guys to bring energy and be cheering the team on. So he's thrown in some new wrinkles this year, and he's really tried to do it with defense first. They really want to start with the defensive end and get down and get defensive stops and kind of let that dictate games. And it's the old adage, you can have a bad night on offense, but you should never have a bad night on defense. And I think they really want to hang their hat on that end of the floor.
That is something I've noticed this year, not just with Red, but with the entire team. You're right. The energy has shifted. Now, say what you want about Red Autry's last couple of years in terms of coaching decisions and the product that's been put on the court. Many things have been said, but something that I noticed, he would never get super fired up, it seemed, on the sideline. Every once in a while, if there was a bad call or something, but we're used to the days of Jim Boeheim throwing his coat, and, being visibly upset at most things that happen on a basketball court. And
Yep.
I'm seeing more of that out of Red, which I appreciate. I always said that to be a successful college coach, whether it be basketball or football, you have to be a little bit of a psychopath. Just a touch, and it's in a good way. And I've said this very complimentary about Fran Brown multiple times in the past, that he's got that little bit of psychopath behavior that I love to see out of a college coach. And Red seemed a little too, dour isn't the word, but a little too calm on the sidelines. And it seems like he's bringing more energy himself as well as the team.
Yeah, it does seem to suit Red. He is more of a calm and, a guy who's self-contained and self-controlled. It is a good observation, Mark. It's interesting. Toward the end of last year, he was the most frustrated and angry at times that I had seen him.
Yep.
It seemed like there were a lot of breakdowns, and he just reached his limit, and he was very, very demonstrative in that way. This way, I think he's much more encouraging. He's much more vocal.
Yep.
He's up and down. He's clapping, and I do think basketball. It's such an emotional game. There's so many highs and lows, even within the little moments within the game, that you do kind of need a little bit of that out of your coaching. I'm not a therapist. I can't diagnose personalities or anything,
sure.
But it does seem like, there are some coaches that, are able to get on guys a little bit that does tend to motivate guys in the short term, at least in game and in game moments. Definitely.
So I want to look back even a little further. Before the Tennessee game, SU played the gauntlet of Houston, Kansas, Iowa State. Just give me your thoughts on the Players Era Festival in general, what you saw from the team, and what you think they learned from those three games, specifically the Iowa State game, which, as we know, the second half was embarrassing.
Yeah, great test for them. I think it's great that Syracuse was in that, and obviously in this era in NIL, you need to be in those events to be competitive and to get the windfall of money supply and that sort of thing. But in terms of the Syracuse, I still think it was positive. You proved to yourself that you could hang with the likes of a Houston and a really good team in Kansas. In that third game in that second half against Iowa State, I think they just finally relented to the pressure of a tough couple of days, and that game just kind of got away from them, and it got to them down the stretch. But no, I think it was overall positive. Obviously, going back to the free throws, you'd love to have that Houston game over again. Just make a couple free throws, and you got two really quality wins in your non-conference. But I still think it was positive for them overall. And, talking with the guys after the Tennessee game, they said it left a bad taste in their mouth, that they really wanted to win that Tennessee game because of the results that they had in Vegas. They felt like they could have won a couple of those games and it didn't go their way. So I think going 0-3 really kind of motivated them to get that Tennessee win.
Do want to ask about the Tennessee game because someone in my live chat just brought this up. And not to sound biased, why is it every time we get a quad 1 or quad 2 win, it immediately gets demoted because they lost to Syracuse?
It's funny the way that works, right? You beat a team, but because you beat them, they fall a little bit, and then thus making your win less impressive. They did lose to Illinois, Tennessee in a neutral court environment after that game. So when you start taking a couple of losses, your metrics fall. But I think a lot gets made of the cut line of where the quadrants are. At the end of the year, whether it's quad 1 or quad 2, you still beat the 34th or 33rd best team in the country. And the committee is going to see that. They know where the cut line is. And I don't think it's as much of a difference maker in terms of what we think it is in terms of where the cut line is. But, it's a win that's going to help them either way. And, if Tennessee plays well, it could move back into quad 1.
It just seems like it always happens. And then the same thing happens with the football team where we sign a 5-star recruit. And then because they went to Syracuse, they get demoted to 4-star because they didn't go to Ohio State. Shout out 24/7 Sports, who seems to do that every single time we sign a good recruit. But that's beside the point. We're in the middle. We had the gauntlet. We're in the middle of what I like to call a net builder. And first game of this 5-game stretch didn't go as well as Syracuse fans would like, but Hofstra, Mercyhurst, Northeastern, Stonehill. Does this Syracuse team, we saw early in the year that they can blow out teams that they're supposed to blow out. Do you think we'll be able to build up any sort of like significant net ranking in this before we get into conference play, starting with Clemson?
Well, they need to win, obviously, these 4 games, and they really need to blow these teams out. I don't know that, blowing these teams out is going to move you up like 20 spots or so in the net, but maybe it can get you into the 60s if you take care of business. Today will be very interesting just because they were kind of caught sleepwalking through that St. Joseph's game on Thursday. Late tip, end of finals week, couple guys battling illnesses, a lot going against them there. So I'm really interested to see, are they able to turn the page and come out and take care of business against Hofstra, or are they still dragging their feet a little bit? And based on how today's game goes, I think that'll be telling in terms of how the next 3 goes, because certainly after this, it gets a lot lighter with Mercyhurst, Northeastern, and Stonehill, teams that are in the 300s, and Northeastern, it's a 200 Kempon team, but teams that are really toward the bottom of D1. So today will be interesting, but they really do. I mean, they need to. It's funny now. Winning is just simply not enough. You need to blow these teams out. You need to care about the analytics and keep your foot on the gas, because it does. It matters in terms of the net and certainly the analytics as well. The efficiency on both ends of the floor. Every game counts, and margin of victory does count.
I do want to ask you, I think this is a potential tournament team we have here. I'm not going to sit here and say I think they're a Sweet 16 or I think they're going to win the ACC. I think we have a potential tournament bubble team here, and I think there's a decent chance Syracuse plays meaningful basketball in March for the first time in a few years. What do you think the ceiling of this team is? I mean, like you said, we've got 4 cupcake games in a row. Should have been 5, but it happens. But 4 more cupcake games in a row. Then we get into ACC play, and who knows how ACC play is going to go, because the ACC just seems to beat up on each other every single year. Where do you think this team can end up later this season?
Yeah, Mark, I agree with you. I think the makings are there for this to be a tournament team. I think, absolute ceiling, I think, an NCAA tournament appearance and maybe a win and a round of 32 exit. But I think the talent is there. If Syracuse can stay healthy, if Donnie Freeman can get back, and JJ and everybody can stay healthy, I think it is a team that can put together a solid resume in the ACC this year. The opportunities are going to be there. And certainly the defense is good enough to hang with teams. They're not going to get really blown out. Throwing that Iowa State game away, I don't think there's going to be too many of those games where they're really not able to compete and give themselves a chance to win. But I think some things have to improve. Obviously, the health and the shooting that we've talked about, the 3-point shooting, and as well as the free throw shooting. And if they can just rebound a little bit better and limit second chance points, but also get out and run a little bit more because of their defense, I think that would really help this team. And especially getting into the ACC where you're looking to put together a resume in March.
And I do have to ask, is there any update on Donnie Freeman? He's once again listed as day-to-day with a lower body injury, which they said last year, and he was out for 2 months. So who knows, with this coach speak and day-to-day, is there any sort of update on Donnie? Is there any timetable?
Nothing official today. I think there's been a little bit of mixed messaging from the Syracuse camp, but if he was a game time decision on Thursday, I would think he would be a game time decision today. Certainly Red thinks they'll get him back before conference play. He's hopeful to have that. So nothing official, but I would assume if he was a game time decision on Thursday that he'd be a game time decision.
Yeah, it's just that's what bothers. He was a game time decision on Thursday, and Red wants to get him back hopefully in the next 2 weeks. So to me, that doesn't compute. He's either a game time decision or he's 2 weeks away.
I think Syracuse really needs to get their messaging together and get more definitive. I think fans want more transparency. I understand you can't disclose specific injuries for certain players in certain situations, but at least in terms of a player's availability, I think they need to get on the same page there and together with the same messaging. Even if you don't know, it's okay to say, he's week to week and we don't know when he'll be back.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable and fair.
Yeah, that's my only gripe with how they handle that. James, thank you so much for coming on. A pleasure to talk to you as always, my friend. Everyone, make sure you check out noonsmagician.com. I'm sure all of you have, because it's a wonderful website that James works at. And talk to you soon, all right, pal?
It sounds good, Mark. It's my pleasure, and I'm always happy to come on with you. And it's always an enjoyable conversation. So thanks for having me.
Always. There he is, James Zuba, chiming in, deputy editor at noonsmagician.com. Take a time out, come back, and talk about much more here on Outside the Box Score. Some breaking news just hitting my Twitter feed via Jeff Passan, ESPN's baseball writer extraordinaire. So we'll talk about that involving the New York Mets and much more. Phone lines open, 315-671-1260 if you want to chime in. Be back in just a minute.
I can't believe how spot.
Yeah, I'm getting real tired of, he's day-to-day. I remember when Donnie Freeman was day-to-day for half the season last year. Like, and it's same thing. It's a lower body injury, but it's not the same lower body injury that he was day-to-day with last season that cost him half the year. It's absurd. Like James said, say week to week. You don't have to say day-to-day, game time decision. Give us any sort of hope that he's okay. Sick and tired of this. We better beat Hofstra by 30. I get it. They beat Pittsburgh. They can hang. I don't care. It's Hofstra. Team is 119th in KenPom, which is actually, to be fair, better than I thought they were. Wait, the Colts actually activated Phillip Rivers? That is so funny. I have takes. I have takes on the Colts signing Phillip Rivers. I'm not saying Hofstra is better than like you think. I expected them to be in like the 180s of KenPom. 119, getting close to the top 100 is better than I expected their ranking to be. Isn't net more relevant than KenPom? I use both. Let's see, net rankings. I personally just like KenPom. I just like the way it's formatted. And it's similar. And they're 95th in net. So they're even better in the net ranking than they are in KenPom. And we're worse. We're 81st in net. We're 67th, I think it was, in KenPom. Yeah, 67th. So net makes it closer. I can't wait to talk about Phillip Rivers. This is so funny. I can't. And Stone, yeah, he's gonna start. Like, I get it. The Colts are a dumpster fire right now, but this is the funniest possible outcome. It's signing a 44-year-old off the couch. That would make it a quad 3 game. I think. I don't know. Who knows? It'll change 50 times.
For only $25. Don't miss out. Half off only at thescore1260.com.
And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Breaking news from Adam Schefter. Philip Rivers has been activated to the active roster for the Indianapolis Colts, or promoted to the active roster from their practice squad. Philip Rivers is 44 years old. He has not stepped on an NFL football field in 5 years. This is a larger, there's a bigger deal here than, it's, future Hall of Famer Philip Rivers, who was on the Hall of Fame ballot this year, was likely going to be inducted into Canton in 2026, who now resets his Hall of Fame candidacy because he's on the active roster for the Indianapolis Colts, likely going to be starting on Sunday at Seattle. But there's a bigger story here. Is the talent pool at the quarterback position in the NFL really that poor after the top 40, let's say, that a 44-year-old who hasn't stepped on a football field in 5 years other than to coach his son's high school team is a better option than any number of free agents or anyone else that the Colts had on their roster? Now, Philip Rivers wasn't exactly known for his mobility, for his scrambling when he played in the NFL. He's a big guy with a big arm. That's the Philip Rivers style of playing football. So I'm not too worried about his pocket mobility at the age of 44, because I venture a guess that his pocket mobility at 34 probably wasn't that much better than his pocket mobility at 44. I just can't believe that this is the best option. Essentially, a local high school football coach. Now, I know Philip Rivers, like I said, will be inducted into Canton one day. He's a surefire Hall of Fame quarterback. The guy was dynamite for years with the Chargers. In his last year in Indianapolis, he threw for over 4,000 yards at the age of 39. But you couldn't find anyone else? Tom Brady said that he thinks he could probably play until he's 48 years old. Now, Brady, of course, retired in the booth for Fox, working with Kevin Burkhardt as their top analyst, making $35 million a year. There was absolutely zero reason for Tom Brady to ever come out of retirement. I just think this says something larger about the talent pool at the NFL level, where this guy is considered the best option for the Indianapolis Colts. You know what? God bless him. I hope he throws for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. I really do. I hope he lights up the Seattle Seahawks, because that only makes this funnier. That's all it does. All it does is adds to the humor of the fact that this guy would still be able to play quarterback at a high level. Maybe the Colts know something that we don't. But man, I know which game I'm watching on Sunday. That's for sure. We do have baseball news. Jim just put it in the chat. I was about to say it as well. According to Jeff Passan, Jorge Polanco has signed with the New York Mets, 2-year deal. He is going to play first in DH. Now, as you may know, the Mets need a new first baseman. And DH, as Pete Alonso signed a 5-year, $155 million deal with the Baltimore Orioles, which I think is a great gift for the Orioles, by the way. Fits in well at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Going to pull a lot of balls, going to hit a lot of home runs for the O's in the coming years. But to replace him with Jorge Polanco, and I like Jorge Polanco. Jorge Polanco is a good player. Good little ball player. Good hitter. I like him. But it's kind of a tough look for Steve Cohen when not only do you lose your franchise first baseman that is beloved by the fan base, the polar bear, you also lose your all-star closer to the team that just won the World Series, the Dodgers, signing Edwin Diaz to a 3-year, $69 million deal. That happened December 9th. Pete signs with Baltimore on December 10th. And you're sitting there thinking, if you're a Mets fan, and I'm not a Mets fan, but I was sitting there thinking as well, okay, so they lost Diaz so they could sign Schwarber. Or not Schwarber, Alonso. Schwarber, I never thought was going to leave Philadelphia. I would have loved to see him come back to Boston, but yeah. So they lose Diaz, and it's like, okay, now they will have the money to keep Alonso. This is going to work. Closers you can find. Franchise power hitting first baseman like Pete Alonso that already has a great history with the organization. Everyone loves him. They don't come around all that often. And all of a sudden he's gone. Now you've got Jorge Polanco to play first base, which, like I said, this is nothing against Jorge Polanco. Good ball player. Really solid. He'll hit you 20 home runs. He'll hit 270. Drive in 80. Swipe a couple of bags. It's just funny. So what does Steve Cohen do now? Do they go after Kyle Tucker to play the outfield? Do they go after an Alex Bregman? Schwarber's gone. Alonso's gone. Here's what I think the Mets might do. Munetaka Murakami, third baseman out of Japan. He'll be 26 on opening day, still plenty young. He's not going to be nearly as expensive. You are going to have to pay a posting fee because he's coming straight from Japan. But even in the middle of this dead ball era that's going on in Japan, he has shown great power. In 2022, in his age 22 season, he had 56 home runs. The guy has light tower pop. And it seems like he doesn't want to sign with the Dodgers. The Dodgers are always in on all of these Japanese players, which they should be. They have a great history with Japanese players, going back to Hideo Nomo. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets and Steve Cohen were like, okay, we lost our big power hitting corner infielder. There's a theoretically great one coming over from Japan. Give him a shot. It's going to cost less money. I'd be surprised if he got a $100 million contract coming over here. Go after him. I really like his game. I think his power will translate to the States. Watched him in the World Baseball Classic. I've watched him in other Japanese baseball games. I really like the guy. I think he will be a really good player in Major League Baseball. So maybe that's the way the Mets go. Maybe they go for an Eugenio Suarez, who is sixth in baseball in home runs since 2018, who is going to be 34, but you sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, $50-60 million, and that's it. He's got huge power. Maybe you go there, which I don't think would be a bad move. But these aren't the flashy moves that Mets fans want and expect with Steve Cohen as the owner. When he took over, it seemed like this team was going to do what the Dodgers are doing. And they've tried. They signed Juan Soto. They got the big guy last year. It's hard to expect them to get the big guy multiple years in a row. But I can see why Mets fans think this is a little bit of bargain bin hunting to lose your closer and first baseman at the same time. Jim said Yoshida on line 3 to talk hitters from Japan. Masataka Yoshida is a different story. Masataka Yoshida didn't have any power in Japan either. Now, I didn't expect him to come over and hit 35 home runs. Because like I said, he didn't have that much pop over there either. I would have liked to see some of the average he hit for over there. I would like to see some value out of him. But I think this is an entirely different situation to Yoshida. I think Murakami and Yoshida are not really comparable players. Age is different. Their game is different. So while, yes, sometimes signing these big-time Japanese hitters doesn't work out. Masataka Yoshida is a prime example. There have been others throughout the years. But every once in a while, you find an Ichiro. Or not hitters, but you find no one is Shohei Ohtani, but a Yoshinobu Yamamoto, or a Hiroki Kuroda, or a Hideo Nomo. I think the Mets should give Munetaka Murakami a shot. He's listed as a third baseman. He'll probably play first when he comes over here. Stick him at third for a bit, but he'll eventually probably play first. And hey, if they don't sign him, maybe they stand pat with Jorge Polanco, which I doubt. They'll at least be in on other guys. But if they do stand pat, give Mark Vientos some at-bats, please. Signed a Syracuse Mets fan who thinks, given the shot, Mark Vientos will show off that prodigious power that he showed off for a couple of years here in Syracuse. Take a timeout, come back. Much more to talk about in Outside the Box Score, your home for local sports in Syracuse on the Score 1260.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis,
Stone, you said you didn't want Schwarber to sign. That's fair. I just love Kyle Schwarber. I wish the Red Sox just kept him. I wish he never went to Philadelphia. He's just such a Red Sox to me. And Philly's also a good fit for I think if you fit in well in Boston, you also fit in well in Philly. So it makes sense. But he just seems like such a Boston guy to me. Yeah, I knew he wasn't going to leave Philadelphia. Zero chance you watch the Colts game. LOL, Bills versus Pats in a statement game. You can have multiple games on at once. My Eagles are also playing at 1 o'clock. Oh, that's a 4:25 game. It's fine. Yeah, Colts Seahawks is 4:25. The Bills and Eagles are both on at 1. Yeah, it is Big 2025. We can watch multiple games at once. Red Sox shopping in the clearance aisle. Whatever. I don't know what the Red Sox are going to do. I would like to see at some point, and he just signed with the Braves, and this is just a personal thing, is like he's an okay ball player. I would love to see Mike Yastrzemski play for the Red Sox. Can we make that happen? Just a 1-year deal or trade for him from Atlanta or something? Just bring him home. If they don't sign Bregman, I'm out. Yeah, I would love to keep Bregman. I just don't think they will. I have very little faith that we actually keep Alex Bregman. If you lost Raffy for 7 months of Bregman, I'm out. Yeah. Devers trade still doesn't sit right with me. It never will. It never will. Especially since my dad gets to watch him on his favorite team now. Hey, at least the Red Sox got Sonny Gray. I actually didn't hate that deal. I'll be honest. A lot of Red Sox fans were poo-pooing that deal. I didn't hate it. I think Sonny Gray is fine. He didn't like New York. Maybe he'll like Boston. Because we also don't like New York. The Sox did have that middle of the order bat that they were looking for. No, I don't like Sonny Gray as a number 2 starter. I'm not saying that, oh yeah, we got Sonny Gray, we're good. No, get 2 more starters. But I didn't hate the deal. I think he's fine. Yeah, he's the Giolito replacement. He's fine. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Just going through some of the other moves that have happened this baseball offseason. Did forget to mention that Devin Williams signed with the New York Mets. 3-year contract, $50 million. So the Mets do have a closer. It just would have been nice to, Diaz and Devin Williams would have been a really nice back end of the bullpen duo. Dylan Cease going to the Toronto Blue Jays on a 7-year, $210 million contract. My Boston Red Sox acquired Sonny Gray in a trade with the St. Louis Cardinals, which I don't hate. Also acquired right-handed pitcher Johan Oviedo from the Pirates in a 5-player deal that sent the password. Is it Janixton Garcia? I always forget how to say his first name, but his nickname is the password because his first name has an absolutely ridiculous spelling. He went to Pittsburgh as part of that package. And like I said, infielder Jorge Polanco and the New York Mets are in agreement on a 2-year, $40 million deal. Steenson. Okay, I never heard his name pronounced properly then. Steenson Garcia. Going to the Pirates. And yeah, 2 years, $40 million for infielder Jorge Polanco to the New York Mets. Polanco coming off a solid season with Seattle, 265 average, 26 home runs, and 78 RBI, good for an 821 OPS, 154 home runs in his career. He's a solid player. Like I said, he's been in the league since 2014. He's a vet, has a 30 home run season under his belt. Will hit you 260, 270 in a good year. I don't hate the deal, but the Mets, like the Red Sox, really do still need to do more. Just going to mention it, move on. I don't know who Michigan is going to hire to be their head coach. Sharon Moore, obviously fired for heinous things, apparently. Arrested on three charges, 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. I really don't know who Michigan's going to end up hiring, but it has to be better than that, right? Stone said probably a guy with a rap sheet. It's a real tough look for back-to-back coaches at Michigan, one of which to be banned from coaching in college until 2038, and the second one to be a criminal. I know my Ohio State girlfriend or Ohio State alum girlfriend is probably, kicking her feet laughing over all this, but Kenny Dillingham is number one in the betting odds. I don't think that would be a terrible hire. The timing really does kind of stink for Wolverine fans, because if this happened a week ago, you would have your pick of the litter. And now everyone has already been hired pretty much. So it's kind of tough. They have a long road ahead. But it really is a tough look. Jim says DeBoer if Bama loses to Oklahoma. That is true. Kalen DeBoer might be available because Bama might just fire him if they lose in the first round of the playoffs. So who knows? We do have the college football playoff coming up. Notre Dame, of course, left out, and Notre Dame fans are not happy about it. Personally, I kind of agree with Notre Dame fans, which is something that I never do, is agree with Notre Dame fans. Yeah, they kind of got the shaft there. What we'll do is we got to take one more time out. We'll come back and we'll break down the upcoming college football playoff here on Outside the Box Score.
2 hours ago, Kyle arrived at the bar.
Hey, what's everyone drinking?
30 minutes ago, Kyle got his friends another round of drinks.
Cheers.
5 minutes ago, Kyle decided to drive home drunk.
Then Sark from Texas to Bama. I don't think Sark will leave Texas. I really don't. Also, how about Indiana? You get... Jim said no shaft for Notre Dame. They just weren't ranked properly all along. Best win was USC. And that's fine. If you think that they weren't ranked properly the entire time, I probably wouldn't disagree with you. It just kind of stinks that they were ranked where they were the entire time and missed out on the playoff. Like, they were number 11 in the college football playoff rankings and then didn't get the playoff. Like, say what you want about their ranking in general, but seems like they should have been in. Did you see the Sox keep calling about getting Teal back? That would be hilarious. Like, hey, thanks for Garrett Crochet. We sent you this catcher. Can we have him back, please? Which I would love. I love Narvaez, but I think Kyle Teal is a stud. Moral of the story, all the weekly ranking shows are just to fill airtime. Yep. And then the the selection show is also just to fill airtime on ACC Network. So SU has to tip off at 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday when they weren't even showing a game beforehand. They were showing a replay of the selection show. Teal and Narvaez splitting time would be fantastic. That would be a great catching tandem. Like, that would be awesome. Maybe that rerun would get more eyeballs than SU game. Probably. But still, stop starting games at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's too late. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Did want to give a big congratulations. I forgot to mention it earlier in the show. CBA football winning yet another state championship. I believe that makes it 3 years in a row. It is their fourth in the last 5 years, as they won yet another one at the JMA Wireless Dome this past week. In 3 seasons at CBA, how about this? Linebacker Riley Clemens Batanko owns 3 straight championships and a 41-0 record. Not bad for the brothers, winning yet another Class AA state title in football. Shout out CBA. Coming up next week, we have the college football playoff. 4 games being played between the 19th and 20th. On the 19th, just one game, Alabama, Oklahoma at 8 p.m. on Friday. That game will be on ABC. Winner of that game goes on to play Indiana. James Madison, Oregon. They're on at 7:30 on December 20th, next Saturday. Go Ducks. That's all I have to say. Oregon is a 21.5-point favorite. So thanks for coming out, James Madison. You had a great year. You're going to run into a buzzsaw. Bama, 1.5 favorite over Oklahoma, by the way. Ole Miss taking on the green wave of Tulane. Shout out friend of the show, John Bowman. Big Tulane guy. I'm sure he's hyped up for that one. Ole Miss, like I said, 17.5-point favorite. That game is at 3:30 on TNT and True TV. And then kicking off the action on Saturday, Texas A&M taking on Miami. A&M a 3.5-point favorite. Winner of that game plays Ohio State. Winner of Ole Miss, Tulane, plays Georgia. And the winner of Oregon, James Madison, plays Texas Tech. Indiana, the number 1 overall seed. Congrats to them. You get an absolute buzzsaw. After that, I think both Bama or Oklahoma are very capable of beating Indiana. I think Indiana's a really good team, but that's a tough matchup for them that they've got to play in the second round. That game would be the Rose Bowl. The Capital One Orange Bowl will be Texas Tech versus the winner of, or whoever they play, either Oregon or James Madison. Sugar Bowl for Georgia, and the Cotton Bowl for Ohio State. We do also have 2 NFL games next Saturday, and here's my take. NFL should never be played on Saturday. Just throwing it out there. I don't like Saturday football. I don't like the Christmas football. Throwing that out there. Christmas is an NBA holiday. I will be watching the NBA on Christmas. I also don't like that 2 of the games are on Netflix and one of them is on Prime Video. I don't like that. And yes, my Eagles are playing on Saturday next week, but I don't like it. Yes, I realize the NFL has been played on Saturdays for a long time. I just don't like it. There's too much NFL. I'm footballed out by this point of the year. Watching college every week, watching pro every week. Then we got Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days of the NFL. It's too much. Mark will be the only one watching Christmas NBA. Probably, but I maintain I think it's an NBA holiday. The NBA had a stranglehold on Christmas for a long time, and that's the way it should be. Is this just because my Celtics almost always play on Christmas? No, but it helps that it's always been a thing for me to watch the Celtics on Christmas. So there's too much NFL. I don't like it, but I will be watching Phillip Rivers play football on Sunday at Seattle because I think that'll be a lot of fun. All right, that'll do it for the show this week. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, 11 a.m. right here on the Score 1260. We'll see you then. Peace.